Hello, once again, Martin Popoff here from the Contrarians, back again for another edition of Who Invented Heavy Metal. Just as a little bit of a recap, we've gone through Cream and Hendrix, and we've had a couple of Blue Cheer albums. We've had Black Sabbath's first album. We've talked about MC5 and the Stooges. So the true answer, I think the album that everybody coalesces around is Black Sabbath, Black Sabbath. But we're moving into 1970 here. I kind of think as an old guy, newer, younger listeners, people kind of new to this or new to this question, who invented heavy metal, they probably think it's pretty weird splitting hairs between what came out in what month in 1970 or what season in 1970 now, as I'm doing this, like, what is it, 55 years later kind of thing. So we are going to go through at least 1970 with this little exercise, this series of episodes, because there are some very important albums that I think actually do more than Black Sabbath, but they are later than Black Sabbath, Black Sabbath. So today's episode is all about Deep Purple in rock, or as I like to call it, in rock. But the band, they really want you to call it Deep Purple in rock, believe me. Anyways, there you go with the whole Mount Rushmore album cover. We've got a gatefold in here, black and white, but very useful. You get the credits, you get the lyrics, you get everything with this. So why is this album important? So Deep Purple had gone through a period. Deep Purple Mark I with Nick Simper and Rod Evans were more of a psych band, kind of Vanilla Fudge, heavy on the organ, but very psych. Then they have the Bizarre live album with the orchestra, orchestrated or like pushed by John Lord more than anything. And then coming back, the idea was, and I've talked to all the guys in the band about it, and it's a little frustrating the way they talk about it, but this part of it is actually really important, and I understand this. So they wanted to come back from the classical album because they were getting a lot of press and people saying, and just general confusion that, is this a classical band now? Like, what's going on? Where's the orchestra kind of thing? So they wanted to come back hitting twice as hard, with this new album, and obviously a big change in the band, transitioning through that classical period. And then there's a single, Hallelujah, as well, is the fact that we get Ian Gillan and Roger Glover in the band. They're Roger Glover's the bassist, Ian Gillan's the vocalist, but they are also a songwriting team. And that's really important for the band as well. Of course, we've got Ritchie Blackmore as the main songwriter. We've got John Lord in there as keyboardist, pioneering this idea of heavy keyboards with his Hammond. We've got Ian Pace on drums. But why this album is super important in the invention of heavy metal is that if it would have come before Black Sabbath's debut, or at the same, let's say they came out on the same day, this would have actually been the more impressive and the more inventive of heavy metal, and the more modern and the more visionary of the album. So let's walk through it here. So essentially what you get here, on the back, they're kind of in order. So with Speed King, you get this, you get Ian doing this kind of vocal vamp, recalling the 50s kind of thing. But that's the last thing about this song that's the 50s. This actually, Speed King is so riffy and so non-bluesy. Essentially, there's a slight hint of a blues structure in it, but it's basically a hard-hitting, riffy song that it actually is heavier than anything on the first Black Sabbath album. I don't know, NIB and kind of like the psychological heaviness of Black Sabbath, they kind of compare, but this is a very heavy song to kick off the album. Then we go into Bloodsucker, and it's even heavier. It's heavy, it's doomy, it's got a little bit of the tritone, the Diablos in Musica, the Devil's Note in there. And Ian Gillan is personifying the idea of a heavy vocalist. He's much heavier than Robert Plant is as a vocalist. So 2 songs in a row, very, very heavy. And this is June 5th, 1970, right? So So we are exactly halfway through 1970 at this point when this album is coming out. Then we get Child in Time, the most famous song in the album. I famously, rail against it. I don't think it's that great a song. We know it's a little bit of a lift from It's a Beautiful Day as well. But it's long, it's jammy. I don't like my Deep Purple that way. I don't like Made in Japan at all. So we get a side one of the original vinyl with 3 songs. 2 of them are absolutely forward thinking, total heavy metal, and 1 is not heavy at all, and it's long, right? It's like 10 minutes or whatever it is, right? Then we get into side 2, and we've got, actually they aren't in exact order, are they? They aren't. That's kind of weird. Side 2, you've got Flight of the Rat opening the side, and to me this is almost like a precursor to just straight Americanized heavy metal. America really doesn't participate in a big way in a very impressive invention of heavy metal until the likes of Montrose. And actually, come to think of it, I've never thought of this before, but Flight of the Rat is probably one of the most Montrose songs on this album. But it has a little bit more of a melodic, but still up-tempo, and all based around distorted electric guitar riff, right? So it's a heavy song. Into the Fire, also very heavy, and Living Wreck. Living Wreck can be a little psyche, kind of the way that the verse of Smoke on the Water is a little watery and psyche and a little non-committal sort of thing. But Into the Fire and Living Wreck are both absolutely heavy enough, modern, forward thinking, all these things we're saying about the heavy bits of Black Sabbath. And then we get to Hard Lovin' Man, which to my mind is it's an up-tempo gallop. To my mind, this is the best first proto Iron Maiden song. It sounds like a Maiden song. We've got John Lord soloing very dissonantly and violently on keyboards. So yeah, even though this band has a keyboardist, they are massaging that into the situation and making even that sound heavy. So like I say, you got side 1 with 2 ragingly heavy songs and 1 not. So 2 out of 3. And side 2 is 4 out of 4. 4 out of 4 for heaviness. I know, and I want to stress the point again that, as I've talked about in this whole Who Invented Heavy Metal thing, a lot of this is kind of, I did a whole book called Who Invented Heavy Metal, and a lot of this is hammered home there. What you get with this band was never particularly bluesy, but they would have been more bluesy in the Mark I era. This is the Mark II era, and I think what you get here is you're starting to hear a band very much like Black Sabbath. I don't think there's a lot of blues in the first Black Sabbath album either, but you're getting a band that is sampling or being more inspired by classical music than you are by the blues. And there's essentially no blues on this album. Keyboardists generally are inspired by classical music. So you've got John Lord helping with that. And then you've got Ritchie Blackmore, who is inspired by classical music. And so these 2 guys are kind of meeting in the middle to give Deep Purple, strong hints, tastes, notes of classical music throughout. Now it's not particularly in the song structures or the riffs, but you do hear it kind of come out in the soloing that they do, but also by proxy, the classical has kind of subtly replaced the blues. And yeah, this is absolutely hard rock. Yeah, and so yeah, let me just so the other thing that Roger Glover said to me once that I thought was pretty interesting. So yeah, we had the one explanation that absolutely makes sense, is like, we want to really drive home the point that we're not a classical band. But Roger Glover said to me as well, we decided with this record that if it wasn't exciting, we would throw things out. So everything on this record had to be exciting to make the album, kind of thing. And I thought that was kind of a neat thing to say, because you do get that feel of excitement and wildness and chaos, again, especially when you get to the soloing of both Ritchie and John. They make a lot of noise, right? They make a lot of use of electricity. when they're doing this. So yeah, everything is very exciting on here. And Ian Gillan is a very exciting lyricist and singer. He's the wild man. He's the screamer, right? He's that's definitely his reputation. He's the guy that brought, a really intentional extreme vocal to the band as well. So you've got extreme vocals, extreme keyboards, extreme guitar, extreme riffs. Ian Pace, of course, has to keep up with all this. So he's a wild, energetic drummer as well. So everything about this album is absolutely super inventive of heavy metal. So there you go. That's a really important one in this episode. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Please hit the like button as well and subscribe and all that. You can join our Patreon. That gets you onto our panels and stuff. You check out martinpopoff.com for all my books. I got 130 hard rock, heavy metal, prog, punk books, and PayPal buttons and all that. And I have an audio podcast called History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff, up to 306 episodes at this point. And I also do one with John Gaffney called Kicked in the Teeth, an AC/DC podcast. So there you go, Deep Purple and rock. Let us know what you think. I'm checking the comments. I'll post on Facebook. I comment there as well on this stuff. This has been another Who Invented Heavy Metal.